The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
This is Haymaker Combat Sports. Hear it here, coming straight from the source. Only with the real, they ain't here to dress it up. Sweet science, MMA, you can get it all from us. Trust, 5 stars cause it's live. And through the fight game, we can guide ya. Slick talking, putting them in caution. Passing all the goals cause the audio is awesome. What you waiting for? Spread the word, tell a friend. This the podcast where all of the discussion ends. When they start going strike for strike, this the show that'll tell you what you seen in the fight. And they ain't playing on the mic, this a welcome to the show. Warm it up for the squad, Haymaker of the bros. I'm about wow, you can hear from the pros. It's Haymaker Combat Sports, time to roll.
Welcome to Haymaker Combat Sports, powered by Belly Up Sports Media Network. I'm your host, EJ Reed, joined by my fellow hosts, Aaron Admire, Steve Johnson. What's up, fellas?
How's it going? Happy whatever day it is. I think we're a day late and $1 short.
Yeah, Wednesday. This will be out on a Thursday, but better late than never. What's good with you, Steve?
Not much, man. Yeah, just thankful. Shoot, I had a hell of a past few days, but I'm just thankful.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
What's going on in your world?
Well, probably about 3 days ago, I just got over it. But 4 days before that, started with 2 days of body soreness out of nowhere. And I think it's something I ate, and then I thought I got over that, and then had a migraine for 2 days. And that's the first time I experienced that. Like, I haven't had a headache since I got a butt whooping and started crying hard as a kid,
Damn.
Oh, yeah. It was a type where every time I bent over, it was feel like my brain's about to pop out of my head, but got through it. And like I say, people usually are, they overdo it. But I'm actually thankful because of that, because I wouldn't wish that on nobody, man.
Yeah, those ass whoopings were a motherfucker back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Sniffling for 2 hours over a butt whooping.
Anyway, I'll give you something to cry about if you keep crying.
Yeah.
I don't get headaches that often, but when you do, it's like the worst feeling in the world. Hopefully you're able to get through it.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
What you been up to, Admire? Anything interesting this past weekend?
Nothing really. Just been busy hanging out with the family, pretty much. That's about all that goes on in my world. Hanging out with the family, working in the yard. The big excitement in my world, mowing my grass last week. I ran over a fucking beehive in the ground. And dude, I got stung all over my hands, my arms, my legs, fucking my head. My hands swelled up like boxing gloves. Like, that shit's like really in the movies, man. Like, they swarm you and chase you. They chased me all around my house, stinging me and shit. They flew up my fucking pants. Like, it was miserable as shit. I was swollen up for a couple days. Shit sucks.
That's the thing that nightmares are made of. Geez, I didn't even know they could get buried underground like that. You said they went inside the house too?
Yeah, they were in my pants. Like, dude, it happened in my front yard. I ran over them and they started stinging me, and they were stinging me all around my house as I was running. And I ran in the house and I took my pants off and they were fucking in my shorts. And then so I had bees in the house and shit. It was fucking crazy, man. Like, it was just horrible. They're called carpenter bees. These little assholes, they don't even make honey or do anything productive. They just make hives underground. And I ran over it with the lawnmower and pissed them off.
Shit, I've never been stung by a flying insect, knock on wood. I can only imagine, though. Is there anything you can really do to prevent running over another one? Dude,
no. Like, I went and got this shit. It's like this foam spray that you spray down in there, and it's expanding foam, and it blocks off their nest and it poisons them. Like, I put on sweatpants and shoes and a hoodie and like cinched it up. Like I went out there and fucking I was suited up and fucking bombed their shit. And then this weekend on the other side of my yard, I found another one. So I had to do it over there. Like, yeah, man, I found another one. So luckily none of the little kids like found it.
Yeah, you didn't run over the second one, did you?
No, I almost stepped on it though.
How'd you even see to avoid it?
I just seen a bunch of bees crawling around on the ground because, like, after that first one, I was paranoid, man. Like, anytime I walk in the yard, like, I'm looking at the ground now. Like, it make me paranoid as shit.
Man, I'm hoping. I wonder if it's like a exterminator or somebody, a specialist that you could call to like do to like the perimeter and like the surface area around your yard or something.
I bet there's something you could do to spray it, man, because it's crazy. And then my girl, her son, I've been going down and mowing his yard because his lawnmower was broken. He had one in his yard. It's just like a hole like the size of a quarter in your yard, and like the bees just coming in and out of it is crazy.
Shit, I wouldn't wish that on our worst enemies. How many times did you get stung?
Dude, I can count. It was probably about 10, 15 times. I mean, it was the back of my legs, my hands, the back of my arms, the back of my head. Like, it was nuts.
Those the type of bees that die once they sting you.
I imagine they left their stingers in me when they stung me, and then I pulled it out with tweezers, and then of course we Googled it, and I learned you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to like use a flat edge and like push it out because it pushes the poison out, and then it pushes the stinger out. Yeah, they leave poison in you. That's what makes it swell up and shit, and that's what people are allergic to. They drop off some kind of poison in you.
Oh yeah, if you put them under a little magnifying glass, you'll see the ass from the abdomen they release from. That shit will still be pumping like a heartbeat into you. You don't get it out.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Well, hopefully you avoid those in the future, because that would make me stop wanting to even mow the lawn. I fucking call a landscaper if you can't figure out how to avoid that shit in the future.
Well, yeah, that's what sucks, man. It made me think about it, but I literally just went out like 2 weeks ago and bought a $4,000 lawnmower. So like,
damn, yeah, you kind of gotta get that investment back and get your money's worth out of that.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, man, like I said, hopefully you avoid those bees in the future. I hate to see you get stung even more, but let's get into some MMA, fellas. Before we get into the event, big news story broke earlier this week. UFC, CBS, Paramount revealed historic contract to provide fans all content with pay-per-view. This report comes from Bleacher Report. So when I first saw it, I was kind of, taken aback a little bit, because with TKO, WWE, they're all one big happy family, quote unquote. And a couple of days beforehand, WWE announced their partnership with ESPN. They were on Peacock beforehand. Now they're going to be with ESPN. I think ESPN is getting rid of ESPN Plus. They got some type of like just straight up ESPN app. I don't know. They just always keep revamping whatever system they got, but they're getting rid of ESPN Plus. I heard they're getting rid of Hulu too, but I guess that's a story for another day. And then going to this $29.99 per month model where they're having all their linear stations on the app with like ESPN, ESPN2, U, and whatnot. And I think they're gonna have like the exclusive ESPN app content as well. And now they're having the WWE on there. They're having their like PLEs, that's what they call it, pay-per-views, where they have like WrestleMania and whatnot, or basically one-offs. They still haven't even sold their library yet, because their library was on Peacock. And then so I'm like, okay, so UFC is probably gonna re-up with ESPN. It's gonna be hand in hand. And lo and behold, a couple days later, UFC announced this Paramount deal. And the biggest part of this deal is that apparently all of their events, their fight nights, their numbered events are all going to be on UFC Paramount. for one monthly price, whatever. I'm sure Paramount will probably up the number of money you pay per month for that. But basically, getting rid of the pay-per-view model and going to this, on service level. Who knows what will happen with more announcements in the future? But as far as what has been announced, what were your initial thoughts on this, Admire?
Yeah, I was real surprised that they decided to go with Paramount. I would have expected a re-signing with ESPN, like you said, especially with WWE going there. But yeah, real surprise was my first reaction. The money that they paid was the next surprise. I believe that like 7.7 billion that they paid. I don't think that Paramount was even worth that. So they paid more than what their initial value was even worth. So this is like the biggest deal that they've ever made. So that was huge. And my thought with that was, these fighters better get paid, man. Like there better not be any more of this 10,000 to show, 10,000 to win shit. Like if Paramount's putting out $7 billion to buy this, I mean, the fighters better get paid a lot better. That's one of my big thoughts. And then you kind of touched on it for a second. They do have their monthly fee. I would 100% expect that to go up, if they're going to be carrying all these cars and, the pay-per-view models going away. A lot of people are celebrating, saying, oh, we're going to get all these pay-per-views for free now. And people did the math saying, if you bought all the pay-per-views this year, it would have been, $1,300. But if you, buy it on the Paramount, it's only going to be, $500 for a whole year. Well, I don't think that's true. I think you're going to see it change. I think you're going to see the price models go up for that. So I think it'll still be better. Me personally, I'll buy the Paramount subscription, and I'll probably get rid of my IPTV. I basically only use IPTV just for the fights. So having a guaranteed, stream is going to be a lot better for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have IPTV as well, and UFC is what I mainly use it for. Like sometimes I'll pop in and you look at regular TV stations on there, but for the most part, it's for UFC, sometimes some AEW stuff, but boxing I still use for boxing. So, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Yeah, I mean, where is this $500 a month per month number coming from, Admire? Because I just did the math. That's still $41 a month. Because right now Paramount Plus is like $12 per month for premium subscription, and then $7 for the basic. So where does $500 number come from?
I was just throwing that out. It was something much lower than what the pay-per-views were. It could have been, whatever it was, 120 for the whole year or something. A lot of people are doing the comparisons, saying that this is going to be significantly lower.
Yeah, right now it's 144 if it's like at that $12 amount, which is a whole lot cheaper than $1,300 per month. But I feel like we'll be getting some more information in regard to that. But what were your initial thoughts on this, Steve?
Well, I feel like we're going into a new horizon, a new phase of UFC that it took this long, but we're alive enough to see a transition like this. I think the pay also almost legitimizes a sport as far as American culture, seeing football on Sundays or whatever. I think it's getting its step up, especially probably looking at models of what Netflix has done and probably seeing the results of that and seeing people are more catered to these prescriptions. And I think Netflix has showed examples of that. There's been talks of, pay-per-view, headlining, bonuses, and he said that's all going to get worked out. But I think it's time for the UFC to, as far as step its tier in the seriousness of American sports. I think it's getting that popular, and as far as today's generation, people are subscriptions, and I think it'll be a benefit. And I think this is just new for all of us, seeing sports on these subscription platforms. So I think it'll be good. And like y'all said, it will probably be because sometimes we get the pay-per-views before this, you'll kind of have sometimes issues. Sometimes I remember a few times UFC had issues streaming, but it seems that Paramount would have a stronger platform to get streams that don't, have to buffer or any of that. So I think it's a good thing for the UFC.
So Paramount Plus, as far as like streaming services, it's probably like the last one you think of as far as, well, it pertains to me. I don't know what the vibe is around Paramount Plus. Only thing I really think of is like Yellowstone on Paramount Plus. And they got a few other things. I think like
I was going to say, what's Paramount's like big landmark show? Is it Yellowstone? Is that like their big heavy hitter?
Like Yellowstone, and that's on their Paramount, the regular Paramount channel, because that used to be Spike. And I know they have like they'll put it on Paramount Plus afterwards. I think they have a few exclusive shows, like the one with Sly Stallone. He has a show on there, but
King of Tulsa.
Yeah, not like a whole lot of heavy hitters. It's a Viacom owned company, so it's one big family as far as like MTV and Showtime and BET and maybe a few other channels that I can't recall off the top of my head, but I feel like I feel like Apple Plus has recently surpassed them. So this is definitely a big boost to, give them a little bit more juice. But this isn't Viacom CBS's first foray into the MMA world. Remember? I know you remember. I know both of y'all remember when Elite XC was on there with Kimbo. That didn't fare too well. Strike Force was on there until that big Diaz brawl, and they were like, "Fuck this, we're out of the MMA business." And then the most recent one, like late 2010s, was Bellator is with Showtime, and they had I think they had maybe an event or two on CBS because Showtime is owned by Viacom CBS. So, what is going to make this go around more successful than their other forays in MMA? Am I?
Just because the UFC is so established. I mean, it's the biggest name in MMA, so they don't have to try anything different. The UFC already has their format down. They already have, just everything's done. They don't have to just reinvent the wheel. UFC can come in with the same commentators, with the same shows, with just everything, and just take off. I mean, it's going to be a huge deal for Paramount too, because you're going to have a lot of people that, only had ESPN subscriptions just for UFC stuff that are going to switch to Paramount. So, I mean, they're going to make up a lot of money real quick just for that. And, just like both of us kind of just said, a lot of people have IPTV just for UFC, who are now going to say, well, I'm not really going to just pay for IPTV. I'm just going to buy the Paramount subscription. So it's going to be real good. And the more money you pump into it and the more that they, are recouping quicker, the more production value you're going to get out of it even more. So, the last couple of weeks in the episodes, we were talking about kind of that White House card that they were throwing out there. That makes it kind of more of a reality. I mean, that makes it kind of a big, unveiling, I don't know how soon the move's going to be, but that might be the big breakout Paramount, show.
They said it's going to happen next year for sure when this thing got announced, Dana White. So who knows? I'm guessing that'll go down. But yeah, I mean, as far as the whole situation, Dana White said he's leaving a little bit of wiggle room because he said maybe for like a big landmark event besides the White House, like maybe like a John Jones or Conor McGregor, they may still do pay-per-views, like maybe one-offs. So, like I said, there's still a little bit of wiggle room. But like I said, boxing, they still have the pay-per-view model. But, Turkey Al-Sheikh with a Riyadh season, he hates the model. But, they still got Bob Arum and all guys at top rank. I know they're still probably going to want to run pay-per-views. The second biggest wrestling company, AEW, Tony Khan, the Jags owner, they still do them. But so do you think pay-per-view will hang on for a little bit, or is it basically the end of pay-per-views? I'll start off with you, Haymaker.
Yeah, I was reading an article. I can't remember who it was by, or I can give them credit, but it was an article basically talking about that is really the end of pay-per-views. UFC was like one of the last major players, with this move. The only thing being really boxing and AEW is what's left. The only other thing they really mentioned with pay-per-views that might hold on is kind of some of those big concerts sometimes have pay-per-view, kind of like the Ozzy Osbourne, the Final Tribute concert. A lot of people have those, but I would expect to see boxing shift into it because you don't really want to be the last major thing left in the pay-per-view world. I would expect at some point AEW, they don't want to be the last one, really left in pay-per-view land. It would be nice probably to see them sign with somebody and have a stable home. So, I mean, just pay-per-view, it's going to be a thing of the past. We live in a subscription world where everything is tied to a subscription now. And then you mentioned it earlier, ESPN, even their whole channel is moving to a model of you can just get a subscription and get their whole channel. You don't have to have their, cable or a satellite. You don't have to have an actual subscription just for the channel coming up. You can get just a regular subscription for their channel. Hulu's, kind of going away and going to roll into this whole thing. So even the subscription as we know it is evolving. So these people that are left in pay-per-view land need to get on board somewhere, get in where you fit in, or you're going to get kind of left behind. Because once people get accustomed to, I pay $10 a month and I get all these pay-per-views, why am I going to pay $80 to go watch this pay-per-view? You're going to lose a lot of buys and views for that. That's going to be really hard to convince somebody to pay $80 to watch a boxing match when I get 2-3 UFC cards a month for my $12 subscription.
So as far as like the AEW side of thing goes, their weekly show simulcast on HBO Max, they still have the pay-per-view. So I could see a world where, they still have their weekly show simulcasting on HBO Max and TNT, but they maybe sell the pay-per-view side of things to like Amazon Prime, where if you get your monthly Amazon Prime subscription, you get their pay-per-views for free. But as far as the boxing side of things, the thing about that, what makes it difficult is you got so many different promotions. You got Golden Boy, you got Top Rank, you still got PBC. So maybe that might complicate things. So do you think, Steve, boxing may try to hold on to this pay-per-view model a little bit longer since there's no uniformity as far as their sport goes?
Maybe so. But then again, I would have to look at the statistics of how boxing's been on these platforms lately. I noticed, especially with boxing, more of UFC, you'll see it on different platforms. But, I'm a PlayStation guy, and you turn on your device and you go to the media section where all the platforms are, and you slide over and they're literally advertising a fight, Netflix, the Serrano fight, a few weeks ago, that was all over the screen. So I can see how that can be a benefit to the UFC, not only boxing also, because we're being exposed and seeing the person fight, let alone I think even this Canelo and Crawford thing, it's going to be on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen that promoted across the board. So I can see where UFC is probably investing in advertisement with this deal also.
Same question for you, Maya. With boxing having less uniformity, you think the pay-per-view model may hold on longer than one may think?
I think boxing for sure will hold on to it longer than the average or longer than the other sports or entertainment things. But I think that they will suffer more just because they are the bigger business and the most lucrative. But I think it's a good thing that they will lose that much, because I think at that point you will see a lot of them combine. I think you're going to have to get a lot of those boxing associations to combine and uniform. And then once they do that, then you can move, to one league, to one platform, and get everybody on board to one place and just kind of get everything in line. Because right now, like you said, you have all these different boxing organizations, and then you have all these different promotions. Like, you just have too much going on, and you can't get everything in one place because everybody's trying to do their own thing, and it's kind of just chaos. So once, one domino starts to fall and people start missing out on the money and the opportunities, they're going to have to band together and come up with something. And it's kind of backwards of the reason all that started is back in the day, they all wanted to branch off and do their own thing because they could make more money branching off. Well, now they're going to make less money doing their own thing. So they're all going to have to get back together. It's, just like what everything happened with cable and then streaming services. It's the same thing with boxing.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I mean, I think that would be something that wouldn't happen anytime soon, but it would eventually have to happen to you see the pay-per-view model completely go away. So, like you said, I guess we'll have to see how the dominoes fall. I think it may all start with Turkey Al-Sheikh because it seems like Riyadh season is taking over boxing. They're starting to be the front runners and everything. So.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have to wait till some of them older promoter guys kind of
Bob Arum,
there's some of them older guys that are just so stuck in their ways that aren't going to change. So yeah, just let those guys phase out and let the new wave of promoters take over that will combine, and you'll see some changes.
Bob Arum's fucking like 90, literally 90 years old. So I think he doesn't have a choice. Father Time is going to dictate him getting out of the game. So, yeah, we'll just have to see how things shake out within the next few years. But going back to the MMA side of things, Amaya, you touched on this a little bit earlier. Pay-per-view points and fighter pay. Nothing has been announced on that side of things when they announced this deal. They're getting, like you said, 7.7 over 7 years. And if this were any other organization, the players would the union would be involved, and the players would definitely be getting at least over 30 to 40, 50% of this revenue share with the media deal. And hadn't heard anything dealing with the fighter side of things. So something's got to give, right? Because it seems like pay-per-view points will be going away with this deal. And that's like the incentive of even being a champion, knowing that you're going to get pay-per-view points. Like, what's the even incentive of even being a champion at this point with this new TV deal? I'll let you kick it off, am I?
I think, yeah. I mean, there's no real way to tell what to do. But me, I'm no business guy like that, but I am a business analyst as a job. I mean, my first instinct would be what they're going to have to do is get 6 months worth of figures once they do move and kind of say, okay, Paramount's subscriptions and revenue has grown by this much in the first 6 months of UFC being there. So say it grows, I'll just throw 30%. So if it's grown by 30%, you have to give the fighters a 30% raise because the fighters caused that 30% jump in their revenue. The fighters should see a 30% jump in pay. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more, behind the scenes that they would have to do, other numbers that factor into it, but that would have to be the fairest. But you have to let 6 months or a year go by just to get a solid baseline of how much Paramount is really gaining from that, because you can't give the fighters a raise without knowing what the benefit is. You know what they did before, or, maybe Dana and company, or, well, I don't even know if it would be Dana anymore. Maybe they just say, hey, I'll use Conor McGregor. Conor, your base pay was $1 million. You used to get pay-per-view points. You averaged $3 million on top of that on your pay-per-view for the last 4 fights you did. So we're just going to, you're going to fight flat 4 million now. No more pay-per-view points, just a flat 4 million. Maybe they'll just go off averages of the past. I don't know, but that kind of messes it up for new coming fighters who never had a pay-per-view, point in the past to go off of average. I don't know. There's so many different ways to think about it, but I don't know. They got to come up with a new system because obviously it's a lucrative deal. I mean, $7.7 billion.
So you're saying like a flat fee? It's like almost like a tier system, maybe, I guess.
Well, I mean, just go off the averages of what they did, especially people who did earn pay-per-view points, just go off of their last 4 pay-per-views, 5 pay-per-views, your averages, and that'll be their new flat rate. Or for people who didn't have a pay-per-view points before going forward, then they get a % of the new revenue from Paramount's new deal. If Paramount's revenue goes up 30%, then the fighters get a 30% bump in their base pay. Something like that.
What about like champions?
I mean, maybe it's time that they set like some kind of pay model scale for champions. Maybe champions should get set at a flat rate fee of $1.5 million, $2 million per fight. I mean, why shouldn't a champion that's the face of the company make $2 million when there's a $7 billion contract going on? I mean, any big headlining boxing champion is making that. Why shouldn't a UFC champion make that?
But isn't it levels to this shit though? No disrespect to Whaley, but if I'm John Jones, even though he's not a champion right now, and he's a champion, why should he get the same flat fee as like a Whaley?
It's true, but now that's the difference, though. Back then, John Jones was selling more pay-per-views than Whaley, right? But now on Paramount, the same amount of people are going to tune in because it's the same price. You don't have to sell pay-per-views. Everybody, It doesn't matter.
Not necessarily, because like, what if they have these? Because they're still keeping the numbered events. What if they look at the statistics and the viewership for one event? They're like more people want to put their ads on there because 1 million people tuned into this one fight with John Jones, and only 100,000 tuned into this flyweight fight with Pantoja.
But will that matter? I mean, isn't that the point of getting rid of the pay-per-view system, though, that it doesn't matter? I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter if 10 people tune in or 1 million people tune in. It's, it's the same across the board.
Maybe not necessarily actively tuning in, but what if they see like, okay, the number of subscriptions spike during this fight opposed to...
True. I guess you could look at it that way because they do see, like during NFL season or baseball season, when they have that one-off like Apple TV game, they see a spike in Apple TV subscriptions that week. So you're right. So maybe, like I was saying, if a certain champion's card coming up, that month, say John Jones is headlining a card this month, if subscriptions jump 18% in that month, he should get a share, some kind of share of that, equal to pay-per-view points, convert that to subscription points. Fighters should get subscription points somehow, some kind of system.
Yeah, they're gonna have to figure out something. But what are your first thoughts on, like, as far as the fighter pay side of things, Steve?
Yeah, I would say I was thinking more of the second one. Seeing the viewership, the champion, see if the viewership spiked, and go off of subscription and also viewership to pay the fighters for that card, let alone putting the champion or the headliner as the standard for that card. I think being a champion would earn that for you to be the standard of the top pay, and it'll trickle down how much people get paid based off if they're in a main event, main card, prelim or early prelim, and basically fight for those spots, and you know about what you get paid. And then when the subscriptions or the viewership count comes out after the card, that's when we can probably lay out how many people would get paid each card.
So I never really did research on how the pay-per-view points work necessarily. Maybe you know more knowledgeable in this. Am I? So the pay-per-view points, were they dictated by afterwards, like as far as like the buys go? Did that dictate the pay-per-view point? I guess portions of it, Admire.
Yeah, I think that it was basically after, you know, all the numbers are in, however many it's sold, they got a certain, you know, like I heard a number one time and I don't remember exactly. It wasn't very much, but there's so many, you know, sold that it makes it more like something like, I think Conor McGregor got like $2 per pay-per-view on one of the cards or something. Well, when it sells, you know, 500,000, that's $1 million. Well, on some of his big cards, it, you know, it sold $1 million. So that would be $2 million extra dollars for him. So, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess they could, if they wanted to, they could transition it to like subscriptions, the subscription spikes and viewership and whatnot. So it'll be interesting. But right now, like I said, they're silent on the fighter pay, which is nasty. That's why we need to unionize the sport. But that's a discussion for a different day. But before we move on to the pay-per-view, one other thing that I didn't mention in our what's good. So one thing that we've complained about in the past, even with some of the pay-per-views of quality, they just farting out some of these pay-per events, especially the fight nights, but it's kind of trickled into the pay-per-view side of things. Now that they're not selling pay-per-views, don't y'all think we're gonna see even more watered down events? Because like we don't have to even sell pay-per-views, because sometimes that motivated them to like put on some bangers as far as pay-per-views, because they know people be shelling out $80. But now that it's basically one flat fee from what we know right now, don't y'all think that some of these numbered events will still be kind of watered down now, Admire?
Probably. I think it'll probably water it down a little bit.
Like,
I mean,
you have to think. I was about to say, what's technically the difference between a fight night and a numbered event as far as just what you're naming it?
Yeah, I mean, you think it is just because it isn't going to be pay-per-view. You know, you always think of the pay-per-views as good, but I mean, fighters are fighters. They're always going to go out there and give their best. And just because they don't have a big name doesn't mean it isn't going to be a good fight. So, I mean, it isn't always the math adding up like that. But I think that, I don't know, man. We'll just have to wait and see what they do with it, because I could see them doing more cards, which usually means it's going to be more watered down, but maybe that means the talent will be better since they want to push this harder. I mean, I can kind of remember like the UFC getting better when they signed the deal with Fox. Like this was the big, you know, the first time that MMA was like hitting, you know, the mainstream. They wanted to be big. And I feel like the UFC really took a big jump in competition and things got real good for a while after that. So maybe this will be good. I don't know.
So like, I remember that first year or so, those Fox cars were like a big deal. They had like Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos fighting for the heavyweight title, and then some good fights after. I think Diaz was fighting for the title on there. But then eventually you just had like John Dodson headlining them. So they kind of, you know, watered them down towards the end of that Fox deal. And like these ABC cars, like I can't remember a memorable one. I think Holloway fought on one, which was pretty good. I think he beat down Qatar on one of them, but I feel like some of these ABC cards been the equivalent of fight night cards. So they're going to be on CBS, like the main CBS free network. But I think from what I understand, it's going to be simulcasting on Paramount Plus, and I think some of the number events even going to be on CBS. I hadn't read in detail, but I don't know like what's going to distinguish these cars from one another. I can see them being watered down. I don't know your thoughts, Steve.
I could say that can possibly happen, but then again, if the viewership goes down, they would probably know they would have to hype things up back again. So I could say it's how much the consumer, lets it happen. They throw on amazing events in the beginning. I think they should keep going if they see subscription count going up. But yeah, I know me. I mean, I'll try it out, but as soon as they disappoint me with, a few in a row cards, that'll easily, as me as a fan, drop the subscription.
Yeah, I heard like this deal is backloaded on the back end of things, so CBS is gonna want some return on their investment, or they'll probably go to a different network after this deal is over in 7 years. So it's interesting to see what happens. I'm definitely leaning towards what you're doing, and getting a Paramount subscription, but I might still keep my IPT service around for a little bit just to see what kind of quality they put out, just in case.
And I mean, another thing though, on the opposite end of it, I wonder how much ESPN is going to lean into PFL now with UFC leaving. I honestly hope that, we've heard that PFL's kind of got some problems going on and stuff. I hope ESPN puts a lot of money into them and kind of saves them, and they start putting on better cards, and they start getting a lot of money invested into them so they can build up their roster and they get better fights. So that would be a big win for fans as well.
I always thought that was a little bit of a conflict of interest, both of them being on ESPN, and they gave a lot more credence to the UFC side of things. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because I just saw a commercial yesterday with them promoting a PFL fight on Friday. I think it's Saturday, but they definitely got to do something to gain more steam. And like you said, I think they probably will focus a little bit better on the PFL side of things. They need to get like Clarissa Shields back in there, and Amanda Serrano, she's still signed there, to get some more buzz. But another thing I heard before we move on is I heard that this Paramount deal doesn't involve like Ultimate Fighter and Dana White's Contender Series. So you think they might keep those on there to kind of diversify their profile, Admire? That?
No, I think everything UFC branded will move over eventually. Or I could see, I don't know about you, but I feel like the Ultimate Fighter's almost ran its course. I feel like it's kind of being dated, and, maybe it's time to transform it, maybe reinvent the Ultimate Fighter and Contender Series, maybe combine it, make a new show out of it, and just rebrand it and open up a whole new show on Paramount, give it its own thing, give it its own new name. I would start fresh if I was them, but, I'm not the creative director of that stuff.
Well, I'm one of the few that still watches Tough. I enjoyed this past season, and we'll be getting into that in a little bit. But yeah, maybe they need to revamp the model. They just started the Contender Series, and that's produced some champions, and of course Tough's produced some champions. So like you said, maybe they combine it. And I don't even know what happened to Power Slap. I don't know if you heard anything on that side of things.
I don't watch that shit. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, they just need to get rid of that. But what do I know? Dana White, it seems to be his pet project that he won't let go of. So we'll see. But definitely a monumental deal that got struck. So we'll see how that shakes out in the future as far as this whole deal goes. TKO's making money hand over fist now, and everybody has to shell out some cash to enjoy it. But it seems like the UFC fans are getting the better shake of the stick, so to speak. But speaking of pay-per-views, fellas, let's get into this card that's happening this weekend. UFC 319 going down in Chi-Town. And if I didn't have a meeting this Saturday, that's only about a 6-hour drive. I don't even know how tickets are looking like. The pay-per-view days and numbers. I haven't been to a pay-per-view. I know you got to go to the one in Vegas, Admire, but it should be a good crowd out there in the Windy City. And before we started recording, Steve mentioned this being a banger, and this card kind of snuck up on me. And I was looking at it, I'm like, yeah, it's a good bit of good fights on here. And like I was talking about earlier, Ultimate Fighter, and I didn't get the chance to look at the last fight of the season that happened Tuesday, so I'm kind of spoiling it for myself. But both Ultimate Fighter finals are happening on the early prelims on this card. And to kick it off, we got the flyweight final with Alibi Ildris versus Joseph Morales. And Joseph Morales, I know you two, I don't think y'all got a chance to look at this season, but he was actually in the UFC beforehand, so this was kind of his second chance, and they're kicking this one off. And then in the welterweight final, we got Rodrigo Cezinado versus Daniel Docento to top that one off. And Rodrigo, he had an interesting story. He was from Brazil, but he moved to Canada and he's training out of there, and he come from the favela, so he's fighting to get his mom out of favela, so that should be an interesting one. And more fights on the early prelims. We got the women's flyweight, Karine Silva versus Dion Barboza. In the middleweight division, we got Brian Battle versus Nursultan Ruzabov. And then to top this one off, lightweight division, we had Erzin Barboza versus Drakkar Klose. Any of these fights pique your interest? I'll let you kick it off, Amar.
I mean, Edson Barboza, that's a throwback name. You never know what he's going to do, man. He's got that highlight, spinning back kick knockout of Terry Edom. I always got to watch out and see what he's going to do, so definitely. Always got to watch him fight. Karine Silva, she's always fun to watch.
Yeah. How about you, Steve?
Definitely those two, and also Brian Battle. He gets hype, has a good post speeches, and has some character to actually be a star, I think, in the UFC if he keeps on winning.
Yeah, Brian Battle, he's one of those guys like lanky, not super cut, but he could grapple a little bit. He was on, I want to say, one of the tough seasons that I watched. So, he's trending on, one of those guys you could count on to go in there and fight. And Barboza, he keeps trucking away. I feel like, is he back at lightweight? I feel like he went down to featherweight. I guess he's back at lightweight now, Barboza. I know that featherweight because he's a motherfucker. So his lightweight. He was at featherweight. His last featherweight fight was all the way back. Oh, his first one was in 2020. So when did he go back up to lightweight? Huh. So he faced LaRon Murphy's, and he faced Yusuf his last two fights. Those are lightweights. No, featherweights is LaRon Murphy. So yeah, I'm guessing he's switching back and forth because Giga Jakazi, he's a featherweight. Bryce Mitchell's a featherweight. So maybe he's just floating, and I guess however his body feels is where he goes. So we all know that highlight wheel kick that he did. So maybe he turns back the hands of time a little bit and gives a good performance this weekend. But moving on to the prelims, ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. Lightweight division, Chase Hooper versus Alex Hernandez. Women's strawweight, we have Jessica Andrade versus Lupe Godinez. Middleweight division, we got Gerald Meerschaert versus Michael Olajeszak. And then to top this one off, Admire's guy, King Green in the lightweight division versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. Any of these fights pique y'all interest?
Alex Hernandez, I don't know, man. I haven't liked him since the Cowboy fight, so I always tune in just to watch him get beat up. Jessica Andrade and Lupe, that should be a good fight. Andrade's always a good fight. And then, like you said, King Green, I gotta love-hate with him, man. He's kind of like Kevin Holland for me. It's every time I pick him, he loses. Every time I bet against him, he wins. Like, I don't know what version's gonna show up of King Green. Wasn't his last one the Paddy Pimblett? No, it was the Ruffy fight. Before that was Paddy Pimblett. So I think Bobby Green's on a 2-fight losing streak. I think the last time we talked about him, did you say that Bobby Green should retire at this point?
I don't think, maybe I say some shit I always forget about. I thought that was you that said he should retire.
I don't know, man.
Somebody may say that. I don't know.
I don't know. I say a lot of people should, but I think Bobby Green. I don't think I said he should. I think that he's got great hands. He's been knocked out quite a bit, but he's been knocked out a lot.
I think I may have mentioned it just to be devil's advocate because I mean, not much he can really do. He's a gatekeeper, and how old is he now? 38, and he's about to be 39 next month. So
yeah,
what's left for him to do? Maybe go to bare knuckle.
I mean, he's one of those guys that he would probably do really good at bare knuckle, man, just because he throws heavy and he's got great boxing. So yeah, I'm excited to watch the prelims on this. I mean, there's a lot of great fights on the prelims, so I'm definitely going to try to tune into that.
Steve, what piques your interest?
I would say all of them. Not so much the Gerald Mershard, but I can say all the way up. These are people that were known, promoted, and have some type of character, whether, they fell from grace or not. I remember Gerald Merchant from the Kazmak, he came in and knocked him out. And I basically know everybody on this card. So this is why I think it's so much of a good card for hardcore UFC fans.
What about like a Chase Hooper? He's a guy that has a good bit of hype. Well, he had a good bit of hype coming in because he looks like he should still be on somebody's high school campus. He's got that look, like unassuming guy, a little bit of dirty looking, but got that top level jiu-jitsu grappling skills. Like, what do you think Admire will take him and get to the next level?
Man, I don't know. He's
5-fight winning streak. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, I mean, and he's real young. I mean, he's got Clay Guida on there. He beat Jim Miller. Jim Miller's an excellent fighter. I mean, a true vet of the game. I hope he just walks all over Hernandez. I don't like that Hernandez kid. Like, he just is a dick. Hernandez, I think he's on 2-fight win streak or something. He's been like alternating wins and losses since that Cerrone fight. I expect Chase to come away with the win pretty easily on this one.
Yeah. What do you think, Steve, will get Hooper to the next level?
I think he's on his way up. I think they gave him some veterans that may be on their way out, and he's accomplished the goal. I think at one point he was promoted. I don't think so. Not the youngest, but I think he was about 20 at the time when he was being promoted, as I remember. And I think he may have, I don't know if he lost once. And he sat out for a while, but it's like you said, he's having his winning streak and he's doing well. So I think this would be a good test because Alex Hernandez, he was, promoted to, go over that hump with Donald Cerrone. He couldn't do it, or else I think he would, excelled past that. So he's getting good fights for people who established themselves at one point.
So he's been in the UFC since 2019, and he's got 3 losses in the UFC versus 8 wins, which is good. But he got some weird losses because he lost to Bruce Leroy, which is not Bruce Leroy, will always give you a fight. But then he's lost to Steve Garcia and Steven Peterson, who I'm not familiar with. So he's got some weird losses in there. So, yeah, maybe he's finally gotten over that hump and he won't fall asleep because he got TKO'd by Garcia. So,
well, I was looking. This Steve Garcia just beat Calvin Kattar. I mean,
really?
Yeah,
when that
happened? Last month.
What was I follow? That was during the Lewis fight. Yeah, I didn't get to watch that whole card because I just watched the main event on that one. Shit. And
then his other
Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia is on a 6-fight or 5-fight winning streak or 6-fight winning streak. My bad. Shit.
Yeah, and then the other one, this Steven Peterson, looks like he hasn't fought since 2023. So he's I'm guessing a retired fighter.
Yeah, either voluntarily or involuntarily.
And but, he went out on a 2-fight losing streak, and his record was 19-11. So I'm guessing it was involuntary.
Yeah, Hooper's also got a win against your guy, Steve Jordan Leavitt,
Oh yeah.
the twerker. uh, yeah. I think like you said, Emma, he's still young, so I feel like he still has a lot of upside, even though a lot of people don't appreciate the grappling game. I appreciate it though. But yeah, moving right along to the main card, fellas. The curtain jerker of this one in the flyweight division, we got Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. What are your thoughts on this one? Who you got to admire?
I never bet against Tim Elliott just because the dude's a squirrel. He always just seems to pull off a win. So I'm going to take Tim Elliott on this one. I don't have the odds in front of me for this one though.
I do. This Tim Elliott is an underdog. He's a plus 260.
Plus two.
Kai Sakura is a minus 330.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Even though he's an underdog, I'm still going to go with Tim Elliott. Oh, and I checked for you. You said if you didn't have a meeting, you'd go to the event over in Chicago. Cheapest tickets in Chicago right now, $440 for the cheapest nosebleed tickets.
Yeah, that's how they gotta make their money back with these ticket prices. As far as Paramount goes, maybe they're like, you're gonna fork over that money. Does I don't know. That's ridiculous. So definitely won't be going, even if I didn't have a meeting. It's crazy. So you said you're going with Tim Elliott. So I'm guessing he's gonna finish him then. If you're picking Elliott, you thinking, am I?
Yeah, Tim Elliott by finish.
Who you got, Steve?
I go with Kai Asakura just because I'm giving another chance. Just because he went against Pantoja and he's a beast. So I'm seeing if his skills he bring into the UFC, he might get it done with Tim Elliott. But Tim Elliott is a good fighter. I've been watching him in the UFC for a long time, and is a veteran. So I don't think it's an easy fight.
Yeah, I mean, Hammeyer must know something that we don't know because he's still in the lead with these picks. But yeah, man, I feel like I can't fully trust Tim Elliott just because he's a veteran. You know, that could go against you. That could be helpful to you as far as like it could go, in your favor. Just from being that wily veteran, seeing every trick in the book. But that wear and tear also comes into play. He's coming off a win, but he lost the one before that. He has been winning more lately than losing in the past 5 years, basically since the pandemic. I don't know. For some reason, I kind of feeling what you're saying, Admire, but I think I'm going to go with Kai Asakura in this one, and I think he'll pull out like a unanimous decision. He'll play it safe, don't take too many risks, and maybe cruise to victory. But what I know, this year has been up and down for me as far as pick goes. But moving right along, fellas, in the middleweight division, this should be a fun one, hopefully. Jared Cannonier versus MVP Michael Venom Page. What are your thoughts on this one, Admire?
Well, on this one, I'm seeing Cannonier at a plus 165 underdog. I see MVP at a minus 190 favorite.
Basically a pick 'em.
It's pretty close. I think the MVP is kind of really settled in. He looked really good in his last fight against Magomedov. He did lose to Ian Gary in a decision, but I think he looked really good. Before that, he beat Holland. I just think MVP is really comfortable. He's, got the nerves out of the UFC stuff. He is up there in age, 38 years old, but I just think that, MVP is just where it's at right now. I think that he knows his time's coming to an end as a fighter. I think that this is his final push. He knows that this is it. Like, this is his Rocky moment. He's got to make the climb. No more mistakes. No more, setbacks. So I think you're going to see a whole different MVP going forward. So MVP all the way.
Yeah, Ken Nair's no spring chicken either. He's at 41, so pretty much even playing field as far as age goes. Who you got in this one, Steve?
I'll go for Michael Venom Page. He has good takedown defense, can get back up, tall. Jared, strong fighter, but can get caught and do the chicken dance and has to get his wits back, and that happens more than I want to see him do that. And I think Page is going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, Ken Nair also, he turned back the hands of time a little bit. He had that good win over Gregory Rodriguez. But I'm gonna go with who y'all two pick. I'm gonna go with MVP. It's now or never to maybe make a late push for a title shot because he's got the name value there and he's got the highlight. So we know UFC kind of jumps people ahead of the line and to the front of the pack when it comes to things like that. But I don't know if you know any information on this. Why is MVP fighting at middleweight?
I don't know why for sure. I really don't. But if I had to guess, it would just be the age thing. And I mean, I think that he's probably just kind of done with weight cuts and can walk in there. I'm just guessing though. Maybe it was a last minute thing. I don't know.
Do you know anything about that, Steve?
I have no clue. I think I don't know if we talked about that. I think his last fight was even one of his fights was middleweight.
I don't know if he's had any middleweight fights in the UFC.
Let's see.
I don't know.
Let's take a look.
His last middleweight.
He
was.
Middleweight.
Yeah, Magomedov was middleweight, so he is returning to middleweight.
Hold on. Who did he fight at middle? What was the last middleweight fight he had?
Magomedov.
The guy with the one eye.
Sharabutin.
That was back in February. So yeah, we talked about that hair because he mentioned it after the fight. I could have swore he was like he probably returning to welterweight, but maybe like you said, maybe he said fuck it, and
no more cutting weight. Just walk around. Just walk right in there.
I just don't see this being permanent for him because I think eventually he's going to run into somebody who just manhandles him. But we know Ken Nair for the most part will stand up. But
yeah, but anybody else probably, like you just said, will probably manhandle him because I was watching MVP highlights yesterday and boy's got some scrawny legs, man. One of them big middleweights kicks his legs, it's going to break it.
Yeah. And before that, he had some catchweight bouts at Bellator, but I don't think he's fought at middleweight in Bellator. I think that Magomedov may have been the first middleweight fight. So I like to see him get back down to welterweight. I guess it depends on how it goes this weekend, but all of us got MVP. So hopefully it's fireworks in this fight. And for some reason, every time I think of some of the fights that go down to middleweight, as far as like people that stand up, my thoughts always go back to the Idrizil Adesanya fight in Romero, how we thought those were going to be fireworks, and that was probably one of the worst fights in title history. So hopefully it's the former, and we see some fireworks with this one. But moving right along in the welterweight division, we got Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. What are your thoughts on this one, Hammer?
Well, we got Neal at a plus 190 underdog. We got Prates at a minus 225 favorite. If anybody hasn't caught on, this card is just littered with people who have lost to Ian Gary. A lot of these people have lost to Ian Gary lately. Prates being, his last loss was to Ian Gary. And before that, he was on, I want to say, like a 9-fight win streak. Is that right?
More than that.
Was it more than that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
11.
6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 11 fight win streak before he ran into Ian Gary. So, I mean, Yeah, I mean, I got to go with Prates on this one just because, I mean, he was on his way up really, really well until he ran into that. I hate betting against Neil, though. I mean, Neil's always a gamer. You never know what he's going to pull off. So it should be a good fight either way. I think Neil's last fight, he won against RDA, but before that, like I was saying, he lost to Ian Gary.
Yeah, and knee injury with RDA, so those freak accidents. Man, Neil's one of those gatekeepers. Sometimes we group him in there with Neil Magny, and they fought 4 years ago. I don't even remember that fight. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this one, Steve?
Yeah, Jeff Neal, strong fighter. One of my favorite, no disrespect, gatekeepers, but I think Prates has too much tools to his expense. He could kick, probably, I can't remember, fight from both sides. He's long. We haven't seen Prates too much in trouble and actually having a competitive fight when he lost to Ian Gary. I'm going to have to go with Prates for his consistency.
Yeah, and you talk about the Fighting Nerds camp. They're churning out some tough fighters out of that camp, and we pretty much see a fighter from that camp like every weekend. It seems like they're putting in the work. Prates is one of the prize fighters of that camp, along with Barajo and Kai Barajo. But yeah, I think I'm going with who y'all picked too. I think I'm gonna go with Prates, and I could just see this being a candidate for a fight of the night. I could see them going back and forth and throwing haymakers in this one, no pun intended. And I think Prates is back on the rise. He, like you said, Admire. He had that stumble against Ian. I feel like, is Ian still undefeated, or did he recently lose?
Didn't he just lose?
He lost to Rachmanov. I can't even remember that fight, that Shavkat fight.
Yeah, I can't remember it either.
I remember, yeah. So, yeah, I remember it now because I remember we thought Shavkat would finish him, and Shavkat is the first time we seen him be like a little bit mortal. But maybe we also underestimated how good Ian Gary is. So, but I don't know. This welterweight division is pretty interesting right now, especially with the champion that's on top right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out in this welterweight division. But moving on to the featherweight division, we got Lerone Murphy versus the debuting Aaron Pico. And Aaron Pico, he came in with a lot of hype because he was like the golden child down there at Bellator. I remember I was still living in California before he debuted because they were basically marketing him as the perfect fighter. It's like, I think he's Golden Gloves boxing, and I don't know if he was All-American in wrestling, but he had high credentials in wrestling. And I was like, either his second fight or his first fight in Bellator, he lost, what kind of took the steam behind the marketing they had behind them. But he was super young. I think he was like 18 when he debuted back in Bellator. He was pretty young. Damn, yeah, it was his first fight he lost. And this was all the way back in 2017. Damn, time flies. I thought it was like 2018. And then he had some losses in there. He lost like 4 times in Bellator. But, he still had, 13-4. That's nothing to sneeze at. And, we could debate all day the, quality of fighter and Bellator, but that's neither there nor there. You only can fight the people in front of you, but 3-fight winning streak, and he's finally make his UFC debut. So do you think the bright lights will get to him this one, Admire?
Ooh, man, this is tough. So you got Aaron Pico at a -172 favorite, Murphy at a +147 underdog. So it's pretty close. This is a hard one, man, because Murphy undefeated. Pico coming in with the hype. Man, this is a hard one. Murphy, fresh off of 2 wins against 2 big names, Josh Emmett and Dan Ige. Pico, who did he fight at that Bellator fight? He fought Henry Corrales.
That was his last fight.
And he fought that Pedro Carvalho before that.
He got his win back over Henry Corrales because he fought him earlier on in his UFC career. I mean, Bellator career. But, I mean, there's no really notable names on his on his win record as far as the Bellator fighters. Like, not a whole lot of notable former UFC fighters.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to base my pick on. Just I'm going to go strictly based on resumes. I'm going to go with Ron Murphy, undefeated. You know, he's beat 2-3 actually his last 3 fights. I mean, because last 3, Josh Emmett, Dan Ige, and Sim Barboza. You know, that's his last 3 fights. So, you know, it doesn't get much better than that. So, yep, Murphy.
Steve?
I'm going to have to go with the same thing. It's undefeated. Good fighter. I remember his fights. I wish I've seen Aaron Pico's fights, but like I said before, I'm going to have to go with his consistency. I'm pretty sure he ain't trying to lose that, you know, undefeated record.
And if it wasn't for me being behind Admire, I would definitely pick Pico. So this is kind of a cop-out pick for me, but I'm playing it safe and going with Murphy. But I really want to pick Pico. I think he may upset Murphy in this one. Like I said, usually the bright lights of the UFC kind of get to these fighters coming from PFL and Bellator, but for some reason I got a feeling that Pico may overcome it and grind his way out to a victory. But this is a pretty high spot for him, though, Admire, right? This is a co-main event.
Yeah, this is a big push. I think this might even be like a contender fight.
I mean, have they even really announced who Volkanovski is gonna face next?
No, I don't think they have. But I mean, I think there should be some title implications with this. He already got Murphy at number 6 on this. Pico coming from the other side with the credentials that he has, I would think that you would want the winner of this probably going after the belt next. And I mean, in my head, you know, Murphy and Volk is a great fight.
Yeah. Like I said on a previous show, I'm surprised Holloway isn't throwing his hat back in the featherweight realm. But I don't know. There's still time. He said he's injured, so I think it'll be a while before we see him in any division. But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued what happens with this co-main event. But let's get to the main event, fellas. In the middleweight division for the middleweight championship, we have your champion, Dricus du Plessis, DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev. It's about damn time Chimaev's got this title shot. What are your thoughts on this one, Amir?
Man, oh man, this one is a difficult one. So we'll start with the odds. So they got DDP at a plus 200 underdog, Chimaev at a minus 237 favorite. So the odds makers say Chimaev's got this, but the internet is speaking, man. The internet, for some reason, is riding with DDP pretty hard. Reddit, TikTok, all the comments are saying DDP all the way. I don't know if it's being sarcastic or what, but for some reason the internet seems to think that DDP has something up his sleeve. A lot of it is kind of talking about how hard of a trainer the DDP is. He's really training his ass off, and he puts a lot of training into his fights. And a lot of it is saying that Chimaev doesn't really train that hard. Like, he is who he is, kind of like, Khabib. Like, he's real confident in his skill set, but he practices kind of the same stuff over and over. He doesn't really change his training based on his opponent. Like, he just works on that ground game, that Sambo style. So a lot of people think that DDP kind of, changes up his game plan based on his opponent, like most fighters do. So they think that's going to give DDP the advantage. DDP hasn't lost in the UFC yet. I mean, he's got a whole murderer's row of people that he's beat. Strickland twice, Izzy, Whitaker, Brunson. I mean, he's beat, all the top guys up there, but then you got, Chimaev up there. He's undefeated. He's beat Whitaker, Usman, Holland, Burns. I mean, that's his big names. I think that's very comparable, on the same level as DDP. So this one, in my head, to me, should be more of even odds, but, I'm not an odds maker. I'm going to live dangerous on this one, man. I'm going to take DDP. I think that his game plan is going to be what makes the difference here. I think he's going to come in with a better game plan. I think it's going to be surprising. I think he's going to be well prepared for the takedowns, and I don't think Chimaev's going to be able to manhandle him like he has all these other guys.
Okay, so Abby is picking DDP. What are your thoughts on this one, Steve?
Man, it's Chimaev, he's so relentless. It's like so strong in the beginning of the fight. But we have seen him weak as far as the further the fight goes. He gets tired, and I think that's where DDP's expertise will come in. I think he has enough skill to wait him out into the third, fourth rounds. But the fact of trying to get there, because Chimaev been putting on a show and cracking jaws, and I mean, damn, doesn't he have to secure a choke? So, it's probably in the back of his mind. I think Chimaev will be dominant enough in the beginning of the fight to find a submission. Probably not ground and pound, maybe so, but I would say what he did to Whitaker, definitely DDP was have to work. Look out for that. So I would take Chimaev.
Didn't he break Whitaker's jaw?
Yeah.
That was disgusting. Yeah, I get what you say with like how hard he trains, and I think the fighter that's kind of like middle of the road that pushes himself to train harder, that'll like put him over the top a little bit and make him an overachiever. But all that training shit goes out the window when you arrive to a freight train, and I think that's kind of what Chimaev has been. Even though he had that weird fight against Usman, because Usman was able to go the distance with him, but I think that might have been a little bit of a wake-up call at Chimaev, and like you said, Steve, he saw what he did to Whitaker, cracked his jaw. I think Chimaev gets the job done, and he's your new champion. And I know another issue with Chimaev wasn't like he had, I think he practices Islam, and then he had like Ramadan issues at some point, and maybe even visa issues, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to misspeak. Wasn't that some of the type of hurdles he had to run into, Admire?
Wasn't the Ramadan thing against Usman?
I don't know. Hopefully I'm not making things up, and I don't want to misquote
I thought there was a Ramadan thing where it was against somebody. It was coming right at the time of one of his fights. So it was supposed to be he didn't have a full camp, or something. I remember something like that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, he may have not been as active as one may like, but the proof is in the pudding. I mean, undefeated, and even though DDP hasn't lost in the UFC, he's still been finished before, submitted, and knocked out. So, we know that's in him. It hasn't happened in a while. So I don't think Chimaev completely steamrolls him, but for some reason I got a feeling that he does get the finish later on in the fights. But I don't know who mentioned that. Maybe Steve or you mentioned him running out of gas potentially. I don't know which one of y'all said that.
I said that. I was looking at the Burns fight, and also a little bit of the Kamaru, and he looked pretty. Kamaru was putting him on him in that third, and this is a 5-rounder. So,
So that may come into play. Like, I'm not totally discounting DDP's skills, and he's just like one of those awkward fighters that you can't put your finger on, like why he's so good. He does a little bit of everything, and he gets the job done. 'Cause I didn't expect him to finish Israel like the way he did, as far as like, because I want to say it was pretty evenly matched until DDP took over in those later rounds. But I may be mixing up another Israel fight. But yeah, I expect it to be pretty competitive in the early goings of the fight. And for some reason, I think Chimaev may solve the puzzle and get the job done one way or the other. But it definitely should be an interesting fight. And I don't know what the welterweight ranking's looking like nowadays, Admire. I don't have them in front of me.
Welterweight.
Not the welterweight, middleweight.
Middleweight.
I don't know why I said
Middleweight.
welterweight. I don't know why I said welterweight. Middleweight.
Middleweight, we got Imabov at 1, Strickland at 2, Chimaev at 3, Adesanya at 4, DeRitter at 5, Barallo at 6, Hernandez 7, Whitaker 8, Cannonier 9, Allen 10, Dolidze at 11, Costa 12, Vittori 13, Magomedov 14, Kopylov 15.
Yeah, so of course we'll talk about it more in depth once we recap this pay-per-view, but it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out in the middleweight division, depending on who wins this fight, because you said Strickland's still ranked number 1. He's still floating around
Number 2. Yeah, I'm ranked number 2, and I don't want to see him fight DDP. I don't want to see him fight Chimaev. I don't want to see him fight Izzy. Like, I don't really want to see him fight.
So like I said, once we get to the recap, we'll discuss, what's going on with the middleweight and how things may shake out. But yeah, definitely weekend of action-packed fights. So hopefully I get to tune in the early prelims, definitely the prelims, and we'll be back next week to recap all the madness that happens on in Chi-Town. But that'll bring us to the end of the show. Make sure to follow us on all social media platforms and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube. And hopefully we'll be going live again soon, and got to iron some things out, but we'll keep everybody posted. But that'll do it for us here at Haymaker Combat Sports. Until next time, be safe out there. Later.
Hit the takedown, ground and pound, that was from the top. Heel hooking on one platter, leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest, sitting on the top. And I'm laughing at the fools who think they coming for the spot. You ain't got a shot, it's already mine.